Welcome back, guys. This is Best in Show Books. I'm Shelby.
I'm Gina.
We're here at Naughty Dog Books, an independent bookstore in Nashville, Indiana. But this, Best in Show Books, is our little corner of the internet, our little bookish corner of the internet where we talk about all things books, what we're reading, what we're liking, what we're not, etc., etc.
Thank you for joining our little chats and listening to us ramble on about the books that we've loved, because I feel like sometimes we could talk for hours about the books that we love. So thank you.
Today, we will be rambling about our September book clubs here at the store.
Mm-hmm.
At the store, if you've been with us for a while, you know that we have 4 adult book clubs. Let's see if I can get them all. Classic, historical fiction, fantasy, and mystery.
Okay, you did good.
Yeah, so we're each going to talk about 2, and I'm going to let Gina kick us off.
Okay, so we're going to start with the historical fiction book club choice. It was The Eights by Joanna Miller. This one was a little different time period. We were in the 1920s, and we were at Oxford University, which those of us that like historical fiction, Oxford is like where you want to go live. Like, I want to be in this library forever. I have never even been there, and I think I want to live in this little part of the world. C.S. Lewis, I think of that. I think of Tolkien. I think of all the great writers. But this book takes place in the 1920s, and it's about the ladies who were first admitted to get a degree from Oxford. Because at some point, women were allowed to sit in on different lectures, but they were not actually students. So this is about the ladies that first come to Oxford to matriculate, which is lots of words that I learned in this book.
Matriculation.
I learned all kinds of things about Oxford and their schools, how they're set up, which is really kind of cool in itself, just learning about how Oxford is set up as a university and they have different colleges. Different aspect, which I thought was fascinating. But anyway, there's 4 ladies in this particular story that you focus on, and the Eights is their corridor where they live. So it's their number of like their hall, like their residency.
Okay.
But then all of their names have 8 letters, like 8, the number 8 plays into it. It's almost like a magical number. And so these 4 ladies who outside of Oxford probably never would have been friends. Like they come from different places in life, different financial backgrounds, different like marriage, single, older, younger. But because they're in this corridor together and they're going to university together, they become friends. You get their stories throughout this book. You get their histories. One's mother is a famous suffrage leader, like she's big on women's rights and she's a great speaker, and everybody thinks, oh, so this young girl is going to be the best thing ever that comes to Oxford because she's going to bring all of this. You get one young lady who's a little older, but she's kind of a socialite, and her sisters are known for their party habits. But this particular young lady, she helped out during World War I, and she is a little harder. Like she's seen things that other socialite ladies have not seen. So she brings that aspect to it. You have one that has a secret. And this secret, you don't find out until late in the book. And you kind of, all your little brain cells are going, is she married? Did she murder somebody? You know, what happened? Why is she holding on to this secret?
Quite the secret.
Because you don't,
range.
I mean, the way the author wrote it, I mean, you really have no idea. But she also is a daughter of a minister. And I know that's not right term that they called him in England. Clergy. So you have all these different backgrounds. You have one girl who had a boyfriend who was a fiance, died in the war, lost her brother in the war, and you also get not only these stories to help you tie together the girls, but you get pieces of what it was like to be a woman at Oxford during this time. They were not welcomed with open arms by everybody. There were people. There were still professors, which amazes me, that are brilliant professors that were well liked and highly esteemed, that thought women had no place in academics. Like they couldn't be doctors, they couldn't be anything other than be a wife, be a mother, and maybe teach some Sunday school. You're fine.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of that. You get a lot of the suffrage movement. You get a lot of learning that women's votes still in England had to have land or a certain age. They had to be in their 30s, and they still had to have property, even if they were unmarried, which I didn't realize that was so late over there. I always feel like England's ahead of us on some of that, of those things, and there weren't as much as I thought. It was an interesting story with history. When you get to the end, the author's really good about telling the facts of the book, which I love, and what was not like what part was fiction. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of fact in this book, a mm-hmm. lot of fact. So it's a really good historical view of 1920s Oxford, and the women getting their votes and getting to graduate. So I liked it.
Now, can I ask you a
Sure.
question? Because on the front of the book,
Mhm.
isn't it like a boat? Are they rowing? What
No.
is that on the front?
No, it's feathers, I
It's
think.
blue.
Yes.
It's blue, and it's going to be right here.
Okay, so there was
Right? Isn't it a rowing? It could be wrong. I didn't really look at it that closely.
I
but
don't remember if it's not a boat. It says the 8, and there's little things around it. There is a rowing episode,
okay.
but it has nothing to do with rowing.
Mm.
And it's not even so what is it when they call it when they have a rowing team? Like
Crew?
but they
Okay.
have something that they actually almost like bumper cars in the boats. I don't know. It's the weirdest thing. I had to look it up.
Okay.
We all talked about it at book club. We were like, what was this? But each of the colleges have a 4-man or 8-man team. And
8?
yes.
But
But women aren't allowed to do it,
Mm.
except for one college gets in with a women's team. So then it becomes the goal of these ladies to create a crew. But it's not your typical, like the rowing teams where they, like a race. It's
Right.
something to do with almost like bumper cars. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know.
I don't
I
want to
had-
be on that team.
No, I don't. It was odd. So there was a lot of that too, like what women can do in the sporting
Mhm.
events. They can't. The rules these girls had to live by.
Yeah.
Holy cow! They couldn't go anywhere without a brother, a
What if you didn't-
chaperone.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so like if you didn't have a brother
Mhm.
at college, you had to have a chaperone. There, you couldn't speak to any of the male students after lectures, which I thought was
Yes.
dumb because I mean you're there to learn and
Yeah.
you're there to have debate, and so there was a lot of rules, and the men and young boys did not have to live by any of those rules.
Sure.
Yeah. Anyway, there was a lot to learn. There was a lot to learn historically about the suffrage movement, Oxford, and I will say we did all have a little trouble keeping the girls straight, and I'm not sure why we had so much
Mhm.
trouble keeping the girls straight because there's only 4 of them. But
Oh,
I did have to have some notes.
yeah.
So it was good though. It was good. Probably wasn't our most favorite. Yeah, but it was a good story. So there
Well,
you
good.
go. The
Yeah.
Eights by Joanna Miller.
Nice.
So we're leaving history.
Mhm.
Where are we going next?
Next, we are going to do, we'll stay in keeping with the Oxford theme. Classics Book Club for
Mm.
September read The Hobbit by Tolkien. And boy, was it a story. This is one I will be the first to admit I have never really like gotten into that. You know, I've never
Yeah.
read anything by Tolkien, and it just never really appealed to me.
Mhm.
Like some people it like speaks to.
Yeah.
And I watched the movies when I was younger, and they were like, okay, you know, just didn't do it for me. But everybody like made a big deal, and so I was like, I'm going to give a good faith effort to try The Hobbit, and I did. Personally, I got like 50%. That is
Okay.
like an effort, okay?
That's a good
And
effort for you.
and yeah, exactly. I literally could quit a book, as I've discussed on here, on the first page. So I read like half of it. But anyways, if you're unfamiliar with The Hobbit, it's the story of Bilbo, and he is at his little home in the Shire, and Gandalf comes with all of these hobbits. No, they're not. See, they're not hobbits. Bilbo's a
Elves.
hobbit.
Elves.
Dwarves.
Dwarves.
And thank goodness for the audiobook, because like the pronunciation on these, I was like, I in fact went to a bookseller here, and The Hobbit is like one of her favorite books. And I was like, I, as an adult, cannot read this book where the characters are named Oin, Gloin, and I just like butchered all the pronunciations. And then I listened to the audiobook, and I was like, oh, it's Owen,
Yeah.
Glowin. That felt, you know, so stupid. But so I did go back and forth with the audiobook on this one, and Bilbo goes on this journey, and they're going to Smog is the dragon,
Mhm.
and the dragon is like sitting on a pile of gold, and they're trying to get the gold.
Yes.
And Gina would know because Gina has read this.
3 times.
So yeah, so the story was not for me.
Mhm.
If you are like into fantasy,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know, and kind of a classical fantasy. And I think one of the reasons that I didn't really resonate with this is that it's a children's story.
It
Like
is.
it was written for children, and it does really have a heavy sense of whimsy.
It does.
I think.
Yes,
And
it does.
there's like a part in the middle where they go into the caves.
Yes.
And Gollum is there.
Yes.
And that part was really dark.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, this is so good. And I, in fact, was listening to it very intently in the car I was driving. And I even had my kids in the car who are 9 now. Her birthday was yesterday. 9 and 7. And they were just like transfixed. But then the rest of the time, my son, who's 7, he kept saying, what are all these gnomes doing? And I was like, they're not gnomes. But in my head, I was like, I get it.
They're gnomes.
So when we met for the book club, we had some people who are huge Tolkien fans. Like Tolkien, changed their life. They have like tons of copies. And I don't say that, facetiously. I'm serious. No. Like they love the stories that he writes. And this one woman had she said probably 30 copies of different like collectible Tolkien editions. And so she loved it. And Jacqueline, shout out Jacqueline, one of the girls at the store here, the one who wanted me to read it, she loves it. And a lot of people, it was their first time reading it. And so that was neat to hear the discussion of that because I had never read it, nor have I seen the Hobbit movies. I had just seen the Lord of the Rings. And so I wasn't really sure what to expect. But overall, the group liked it. And they said they were glad they read it. But a lot of them were like, not going to change my life. Yeah. But glad I read it.
And I'm going to say I read it 3 times. But I read it the first time. I wanted to read it because I wanted to read Lord of the Rings. And a friend of mine recommended start with The Hobbit. She's like, because it is the beginning of what the Lord of the Rings is about.
Yeah, the prequel, right?
Yeah, kind of. It introduces the ring. It introduces Gollum. It introduces the Shire and Bilbo and the reason behind wanting this ring. So I was like, okay, I'll read that. Well, my son was young enough that he wanted to read it. So we did it as a audiobook. Loved it. Really, really loved it. And then he had to read it again when we were doing our homeschool for British literature. So that was the reason for the 3rd time going through with me. I enjoyed it. I loved it. I thought it was charming. I thought it was whimsical. But I did read it for reasons. Right. I don't know that I will ever read it again and again. It won't be like Jane Eyre where I read it every year. Yeah. So, but if you're watching the movies, don't expect it to be like the book because there was a lot of additions and changes to the movie.
And there was discussion about that specifically at book club. They said, the Hobbit is, I don't know, maybe around 300 pages, but that they dragged it out into 3 different films, right?
3-hour movies.
Yeah. So
it's not that long of a saga.
And that those movies, they obviously had to expand on the book to do that, and that they were much more adult and darker than The Hobbit, which I think, like I said, it was whimsical, and you could definitely read it with children. Yes. And I feel like it's, it is light, and it's a journey. Yes. And people kept saying well, why didn't you like it? Why didn't you like it? And one of the best ways I could describe it, aside from the whimsy, was that it was meandering. Yes. It just kind of went on, and they went on this journey, and it was just a journey. Well, it's a journey to read.
I feel, and again, I have not read Lord of the Rings. So I feel like the journey they go on and the people they meet probably are people and characters that come back in Lord of the Rings. Like they're introduced and the lands are introduced. So when you go to Lord of the Rings world, you know where those people came from. Probably. And that's my take on it, not have read Lord of the Rings. Yeah. So I can see why the journey was important. And it's a journey of Bilbo learning about himself and his family and the importance of the Shire. And so it is very childlike. It is very childlike. So take that into consideration if you haven't read it. So one says read it, one says don't read it. Can you guess which one?
It's, whatever. Tolkien can't come for me, so whatever.
Yeah, this is true.
So Classics Book Club read The Hobbit. What did Mystery Book Club read?
Not The Hobbit. Mystery Book Club read Too Old for This
by Samantha Downing.
Thank you, because my brain went blank again. Oh my heavens. I loved this book. Book Club loved this book. I think this was the first book in a long time that everybody in Book Club was like, yes, this was it. We have one lady at Book Club that I love her dearly, and she's like, if it doesn't have a dead body in it, I don't want to read it. This one had lots of dead bodies. I think your mom counted 9.
I believe it.
9 is what we were up to, and those were the ones that were mentioned. So this starts out, and this older lady lives by herself, and she lives in this big house, and she's just like making her tea, and there's a knock on the door, and she answers the door, and this young lady is there and she's like, "Hi, are you Lottie?" And yeah, who are you? And she says, her name is Plum, which
Plum Dixon.
Plum
Isn't that her
Dixon,
name?
yeah. Which again, the names were so quirky in this book, which also draws you in. So Plum is like, I'm going to be making a docu-series on people who were wrongly convicted of crimes or accused of crimes, and I want you to be part of my my story. Well, Lottie was Lorena, and Lorena was a serial killer. Lottie is not living as a serial killer. We'll go with that.
Yeah. So she changed her name, like,
Yes.
for anonymity's sake,
Yes.
to kind of get away from this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when she was accused of the serial killings of 3 people and was acquitted or not charged, her son suffered because of the accusations. So they changed their name and moved. Well, all these years, nobody knew that Lottie was Lorena. And so she's been living in this town, going to church, playing bingo, has friends. Her son has been married and has moved into California, I believe. They're like on the West Coast, but East Coast. Sorry, I know my coast. East Coast. I think it sounds like maybe Northern California or maybe even Washington. I can't remember exactly.
I don't remember.
But anyway, her son lives in California and is south of them. So when Lottie decides she doesn't want any part of this docuseries, Plum's like, well, I'm making it with you or without you. And Lottie's like, well, that's a problem. Yeah. I don't want anybody to know who I am. Whack with an umbrella.
She's like, in fact, you're not making it.
Yeah. So she literally whacks her with an umbrella and kills her in her kitchen over tea. And the process of cleaning it up is amazing because she's like 75. She's like 75 years old. She knows exactly how much peroxide to use. She knows to put a bag on this lady's head. She freezes her in her deep freeze in the garage and then goes about with a chainsaw that is rechargeable, by the way, which is hilarious that she even says it's rechargeable. There's tiny bits of humor in this that you're like, that was gross. That's funny. That was gross. This is funny.
Yeah.
She chops her up, labels the parts that are frozen in the garage's deep freeze as like pork chop, beef, liver, like goes through an extreme amount of care to dispose of this body. And then at some point she knows how hot to have the fireplace in her living room to incinerate the body parts. And then she takes rosemary from her garden, puts it in the fire to cover up the scent, opens the windows in the house so she doesn't have to smell that, which is disgusting.
Yeah.
Puts cinnamon sticks on the stove. So it goes through this story now that Plum has been there. Plum obviously is missing. So you get her mom, you get her boyfriend, you get police officers, everybody looking for Plum. But you get the story of Lottie, who was Lorena, and how that plays into where she is now. You get her backstory. You get her going to church to bingo. And the ladies at bingo are hilarious. They're matching hats and purses and bags. And there's so much to this book, but none of us could believe that we were rooting for a serial killer. But we were rooting for the serial killer to get away with yet more murders than Plum. I will tell you that. She's not the last.
It was very darkly comedic.
Yes. Very different and unique.
Yeah. It was very witty.
Yes.
And she is a likable character.
Yes, she is.
And she just kind of, like, the incident with Plum happens. And then it's, she's kind of thinking, okay, I'm done. It's wrapped up.
Yeah.
But then it's not. And then she thinks, okay, now it is.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying these are like bodies piling up along the way. She'll take a step and she thinks that's enough and it's not. And then she has to do something else. And kind of at every turn, she sees complications.
And when her first serial killer's side, it was in like the 80s and 90s. So you didn't have DNA, you didn't have cameras, you didn't have smartphones, you didn't have trackers on every piece of electronic equipment that everybody carries. So she's learning the world as a serial killer in the 2020s is different than it was when she first started being a serial killer. So that plays into what she calls mistakes, but they're not necessarily mistakes. It's just somebody who's 75 not thinking. But yet she's also very smart.
Super smart.
Because she does figure out like VPNs. So she knows not to do anything on her home computer. She goes to libraries. She goes and buys a special computer that cannot be tracked. She has 2 phones. Like, there's a lot that this woman
Goes through.
goes through. And I think that's what makes her likable, is the fact that she doesn't roll over at 75 and be like, I'm just going to, not learn new things. That's likable. But the fact that how she covers herself up, like she knows people are watching her. So she has a walker that she pretends to use. When people come to the house and she's not expecting them, she has a nightgown she throws on that makes her look like this tiny little frail old lady when she's not. I mean, like she's moving around dead bodies that are like 135, 150 pounds and then talks about taking aspirin for her arthritis afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, this book was charming. It was well done. I love the writing, short chapters, which
very pacey.
Yes. And so when the chapters ended, you were like, I got to get to the next one. I got to get to the next one. So I literally read it in maybe a day and a half. I loved it. It was great. We all loved it.
And it was I myself am a little burnt out on mysteries. I feel like that's one genre one genre that I can just really like, they all feel the same.
Yes,
I felt like this one felt really different.
Yeah,
it wasn't corny. It had good bits of humor kind of laced in, but you did also feel for her because she's got, aside from this, other stuff going on in her personal life, and the mystery of it is good.
Yes.
And I have read several other books by Samantha Downing, and this is probably my favorite of them. It was good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad the group liked it.
Oh, we all loved it. And again, we all laughed that we were rooting for a serial killer. And I think when you have a villain that you can root for, I think that's a good writer.
Yeah, a villain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she was the main character and she was
kind of the
villain. Yeah. I mean, she was a villain.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it if you're looking for a good mystery that's different.
Yeah.
It's different.
So that was Too Old for This by Samantha Downing. And I have the last book.
Me too.
For Fantasy Book Club in September, we read The Society of Unknowable Objects by Gareth Brown. And if you have been around probably since the early days of Best in Show, because I remember we talked about his first book, Book of Doors, which the club read and the club loved.
Yeah.
This is his second book. And while it is not a sequel, it is firmly not a sequel. It's definitely set in the same kind of universe. So if you read the first book, you do pick up on some things, but I don't think it affected how you understand this second book.
Okay.
It would just kind of enhance bits and pieces. So Society of Unknowable Objects, the main character is Magda, and she is an author, and she lives in England, and she is part of this society, and they are kind of safeguarding these magical items. And it's very secretive. They meet like once or twice a year. They don't really know much about it, to be honest, because in the past they have just met and been like, everything's okay, all right. And it's passed down through families. So, but now with Magda in the group, they get word that there is an object. And so Magda goes to retrieve it, and it ends up being a chess piece.
Oh.
And I won't tell you what the chess piece does, but in the transaction to get the chess piece, some man comes in and he is like an assassin, and he also is after the chess piece.
Oh.
And so then it's like, oh my goodness, people know about these objects other than the society. And then you have debate among the group of, is our leader, who is this elderly man, does he know more and he's not telling us on purpose? And so it was an enjoyable story. I think it's really hard. It fell prey to, we loved the first book.
Oh.
The second book is not the first book. You know what I mean? So people came to book club having just read the second one, and they liked it. So it's not like you can't get anything out of it. But the structure of this was really kind of strange, and we discussed it at book club. It read almost like, and this was 100% not intentional, like 3 separate stories. Because it was like this first part could have been a book that, had it been expounded upon, like I would have liked that. The second story, it gets really dark, kind of. You have some characters that are introduced and involved in these magical objects and getting some of them, and that was really good. And then the third kind of ties them all together, but it at times felt a little disjointed. And I think we also were harsher critics, having read the first one and having really enjoyed it. But overall, I think the magic system
Mhm.
is really good because it's just like it's the world, you know?
Okay.
And so I don't think I could read like high fantasy with world building like Tolkien,
Yeah.
you know?
Where everything's completely different and
Yeah.
unique and yeah.
Yeah. So it's like our world, and there are just things that do stuff.
Yeah.
But there were some objects in there when we were discussing them at the club, and we were like, it does what? You know, just kind of, okay. But then, even when I think back to Book of Doors, I remember there was a significant part to that story where I was the only person who thought, what? I
Okay.
felt like that didn't make sense. So, anyways, Society of Unknowable Objects, it can be read as a standalone. It was a good book. We didn't love it as much as his first, but the club overall enjoyed it.
I think it's really hard when an author has a book that comes out that is fantastic,
Yes.
like Wayward,
Yes.
or or June Farrow.
Mhm.
And then another book comes out, and you're so excited for a book by an author that you've just fallen in love with, and it probably on its own would have been a really good book. But
Right,
the
right.
standards are so high
Mhm.
as a reader that you're like, oh, that was good.
Yeah.
But it was like, but it wasn't June Farrow, or it wasn't,
Mhm.
and you hate that for the author
Yeah.
because,
I think it's exactly that. And
Yeah.
that was really well put because I think he's a fantastic writer. I love like the sentences are lyrical,
Yeah.
and I would read them and kind of reread sentences and be like, oh, that's really good. And this is another one that I kind of switched back and forth on the audiobook
Oh,
out of necessity to get it done in
yeah,
time,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And it was good. It was
Well, which did you
just
like better,
enjoyable.
the audio or the reading? Because sometimes the audiobook really makes a book different to hear the words that you maybe not understand how to pronounce them, like oin and
oin, yeah,
And
oin and gloin.
yeah.
Well, that's a good question. The narrator was a woman,
hmm
and she was British. She was a good narrator.
hmm
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I think that makes a difference.
Mhm,
Like
it does.
Like if I'm struggling with a book and then I go to listen to it, I'm like, oh, hearing it makes it
Yeah.
better for me. So
There was a part in the middle where the older man writes a letter,
uh-huh.
and it's like an explanation letter. And he's old. Like he's
Oh, okay.
probably in his 80s, I would guess. He
Okay.
runs a little bookshop, and he writes an explanation letter to Magda of like all of these things. And this letter was like 9 pages long.
Oh,
And the
wow.
whole group was like, where was the arthritis? You know, when he was writing this. And so some people were listening to it, and they said this thing went on forever. And then like we counted it out. We were like, this is 8 or 9 pages of
Okay.
like handwritten. And he even says in there, I've been writing for hours or something like
Okay.
that.
So when you said it was like is it current time? Or are we talking
Yeah.
old time?
It's set today.
Okay.
In England.
So it wasn't
and-
like feather and ink either that he was
No,
writing.
it
I
was
was worried
literal-
that was going to be like
dipping.
Yeah.
No, it was
That
like
even worse.
it's set partly in England, and then
Okay.
they come to the United States for a little bit, and they go to Hong Kong for a little
Oh.
bit. But one thing I do really appreciate about these books, being modern as they are, is they're pretty clean.
Oh.
Like there's some language in them, but otherwise, excuse me,
Mhm.
they're pretty clean.
That's good.
Yeah, which
good.
I appreciate.
Yeah.
So I would recommend it, and I would recommend him as an author. I really enjoy
Oh, good.
his writing.
Good. Everyone, that was September's book clubs, all 4 of them. These books were really good.
Mhm.
A couple of them we liked better than others. If you have read them, please let us know in the comments. We really enjoy hearing from you guys. We also have a special announcement today. Thank you so much for those of you that commented on a few shows ago about our November book box giveaway. So we have a winner, and we're going to tell you who it is. We're also going to go back and find the comment on that particular video and notify this person so that we can get with you and get information to mail out your box. But Emily Molina. Congratulations, Emily.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for dropping us notes in that video and following us along. And we appreciate it. We're so excited to see the book box too. So, Emily Molina.
One more announcement before you go, don't leave. We asked in a video, and we put a poll on our YouTube page, and we are going to do a Harry Potter read-along, read-a-thon, whatever. We don't have a real jazzy name for it. We
No,
should
we don't.
probably, if you know of a good name, put it in the comments so we can call it something eloquent. So we are going to kind of make it like a book club. We'll discuss one book once a month, and we're going to make it the last week of the month. So the last Friday of every month, a Harry Potter read-along, read-a-thon, I don't know, episode will air. So that's going to start, and this timing is fabulous.
Yes, it is.
October 31st. So the first book we will discuss, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, October 31st. That video will drop, and we are so excited to read along with you. If you have never read them before, or if you are going to watch them not having read them, I will say there probably will be spoilers because we're going to discuss them.
Yes.
So just know that in advance. But I can't wait to
I know.
dissect these books.
I'm excited because I haven't read them for years. I've only read, excuse me, I think the first two, and it's been a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to doing this and doing this with somebody who's excited about reading it, you guys.
Yeah.
So thank you for commenting on that post and encouraging us to do this. So this will be fun.
Yeah.
A good fall.
Yes, very fall.
Very fall. And Halloween.
Yeah.
How fun is that? That's the first episode that's going to come out.
Very
So,
fitting.
Very fitting. Thank you so much for watching Best in Show Books. I'm Gina.
And I'm Shelby.
Have a fabulous day.